Look at me and tell me what you see.
I look at you and tell you what I feel. Look at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what I feel.
What's up, everybody? Emperor John Kill 3D Gaming here, and we are here with the review for Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City. Now, all I gotta say is, as a Resident Evil fan, I'm disappointed in the fans on this one. I mean, critics could suck a dick. That's just easy. Critics can always suck a dick. And some gamers who started when Resident Evil 4 was their first game, I'm sorry, but if you started from 4 and up, your opinion on this matter does not matter. You know, the normies' opinions don't matter on Resident Evil, the critics don't matter, but some of the fans who I've seen review this movie act like they never played the game before, or they act like they don't know what the story is. Now, I'm going to tell you how it is. You have to watch it at least 2 times to get used to the fact that it's a fusion of Resident Evil 1 and 2's storylines. And I'm going to tell you right now, compared to the 6 live-action films, which is obviously not a high bar, but when has Resident Evil ever had a high bar? Like, seriously. If people put Resident Evil on a high bar, then check yourself into an asylum, because you are looking for too much in this. But the film, by default, is better than the 6 live-action Mary Sue Alice W.S. Anderson snooze fest. This movie actually tries to follow the source material with minimal changes. And this is what I'm confused about. You want a movie that's just like Resident Evil, but you can't accept minimal changes to some of the storyline, but you can accept the 6 Abomination Mary Sue films? Again, anybody that supports those films, your opinion doesn't matter on this film. Now, the character castings were jarring. I'm going to admit that. They were very jarring, but as you watch them again and you see that these characters are going to grow into the characters we know. And, side note everybody, what makes a Resident Evil game long, like especially 1 and 2, all the backtracking and puzzles. So they cut all that out, and they cut out all the side stuff. When you really look at it, both Resident Evil stories, 1 and 2, are only 45 minutes long. It's everything else that makes it long around it. So fusing the 2 events doesn't bother me. Them skipping Resident Evil 3 doesn't bother me. I like the practical effects in the film. Yes, the CGI. The CGI is shit. It's fucking awful. But even in-game CGI from the Resident Evil films are fucking shitty. Okay? I can admit that as a fan. Resident Evil 1 is, even though it's a great game, it's a shitty B-movie. At best. What did I see? I saw a zombie-filled B-movie done right on the big screen. Okay? And my subscribers and personal friends know how I am about Resident Evil. I am a Resident Evil, but I can admit it. I will admit this. I'm a Resident Evil fanboy. Jill Valentine, the only cop who I would let bust my ass any day and arrest me. Okay? That's how it is. I don't have a problem that she's much darker now. You know, there's a different actress who plays her. I don't mind that Rebecca and Barry were omitted from the film. I mean, let's be real. What purpose would they have in the overall plot? Because Barry and Rebecca, until Rebecca got her own game, Barry barely showed up in the first game, only showed up at key interval points. So, there's that. The recreations of some of the video game movements, like my personal favorite, I know people wouldn't be surprised, but they showed it in the trailer, it looks even good in the film, is the first zombie turning its head. And I give kudos to the actor. The actor said that he did not want to there's interviews that the actor who played the zombie, even the guy, I think his name's Robbie Amell, who plays Chris Redfield, who, by the way, this is the best portrayal of Chris Redfield I've seen in a movie. Okay, and all I gotta say is Claire wasn't a bad thing either. But back to the zombie. The zombie, The stunt actor said that he wanted to do it right because he loved the video game and remembers that moment. So now that he gets to live that moment, he wants to make sure that moment is done faithfully. The zombies, I like the way they look. They don't like overly dead, rotted corpses. See, mind you, this infection just breaks out. They're gonna look more human. They're still gonna look like they're deteriorating because they do slow. You do see some zombies with form of deterioration, and they look straight out of Resident Evil 2 remake. See, that's the thing I want to explain to everybody here. After you watch it 2 times, I might see it a 3rd time tomorrow, on Saturday, this weekend, you know, whatever. But I want to let you know something. The aesthetic of the world looks like Resident Evil GameCube remake and Resident Evil 2 remake. But the characters and the way they act and the plot lines come from the OG Resident Evil 1 and 2. So when you look at that, it's recognizable. And what I mean by recognizable, at least when I saw the trailer, the RPD looks like the RPD. The locations they chose to recreate look faithful. You know, the more you watch it and the more you see how much more in line with Resident Evil this is, you can accept the fact that it takes place in one night. Okay? And I don't mind that. A Resident Evil movie has multiple characters, you know, and they had to take away where people or players would go off on their own. Characters in this movie are in pairs. People always wanted to see Leon and Claire paired up instead of being separated, and I can remember that vividly. You know, I remember that vividly that people wanted that. But the fact that we also get Chris, we get encounters we never thought we would see from the video game, you know. I don't want to give too... It's so hard to discuss this without spoilers because unlike the Paul W.S. Anderson films, when you go into this Resident Evil movie, it doesn't insult your lore. It doesn't insult the lore you know of the franchise. You could spot something. Okay? Quick Easter egg here. You could spot the references to Code Veronica, which I really hope that gets a film and a future remake from Capcom. Done right, though. Not like the Resident Evil 3 remake, but I feel like that should be done and remade. The truck scene was faithful. The monsters, the BOWs, even though they are a mix between practical and CGI, and like I said, the CGI is not the greatest, but the fact that the BOWs actually act like fucking BOWs, okay? I've heard some people saying, oh, it's woke Resident Evil. Where in this film is it fucking woke? Where? I want you to point it out to me. Right, because you can't. I'm prone to spotting shit that should not be in my universe or how I feel things for a film. Okay? And I want to also be real on people like here. Video game movies are never going to meet your expectations. Why? Everybody has a different expectation of what they want, especially in a Resident Evil film. There's people who are like, oh, just skip the mansion and mention it and just go straight to Resident Evil 2 and 3, do the city to have one big film. No, because you need the backstory. Okay, then just do Resident Evil 1. Resident Evil 1, I'm sorry, if that was a film, it would be more boring and more of an investigation film, and Capcom's not going to do that. Okay? Capcom's not going to do all that. We already know them at this point. So, what do? Strip out all the side stuff, focus on the main plot points, and build up the characters from there. I don't have a problem that Wesker is not the Wesker we know just yet. He becomes the Wesker we know. You know, throughout the film, he becomes that Wesker. Okay? These characters are actually literally stripped to their core. You know, I don't have a problem that Chris wasn't full-fledged military or cop yet. You know, they set him up as more of a small-town hero, and then therefore Chris can build up. I could believe that this Chris Redfield will become the Chris Redfield that we know from Resident Evil Revelations, Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil 7, and Resident Evil 8. I could believe that one. The girl who plays Claire Redfield, I can admit in other films she doesn't do very well. I didn't mind her in Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. She's a beautiful woman. She's a beautiful actress. She just needed something that was for her. And the fact that, yes, she doesn't have the red hair, but if you look at the Resident Evil remake, Claire doesn't have red hair. Where did anybody oh, God almighty. See, the shit is, it's hard to talk about the movie and hard to talk about people who have talked about the movie, because everybody who has talked about this movie, by what I've seen, it's one of two ways. People are guilty for liking it because they don't want to be attacked by critics. Normies just want a good zombie movie. And the fans of the game, I've seen reviews, like I said, from the fans, and they sound like they're guilty of liking the film, but then they constantly bring up the Paul W.S. Anderson one, saying, oh, you know, those were guilty No, don't defend those films. I'm fucking sorry. Don't do it. They're not guilty pleasures. They are pure, hot garbage. Don't you realize how much financial failures those films were? How long did it take for each sequel to come out in between each other? I can understand Resident Evil 1 and 2 came out close to each other, Resident Evil and Resident Evil Apocalypse. But Extinction, Afterlife, Retribution, and the final chapter, how many years in between did it take for those sequels to come out? Right, because they were financial failures. Okay? Financial film failures. They were box office. They barely made profit. They only would make a profit. They lost more than they would gain. This film was like, alright, we're going to go really low budget, which, you know what? I'm fine with the low budget. If the low budget, I don't give a fuck if it looks cheap. Resident Evil 1 and 2 Classic look fucking cheap. Okay, I'm glad that this movie takes place in the time period that it's supposed to. The 90s. The 90s looked fucking cheap at times. Okay? Get over it. Seriously. Man, and I'm getting over a fucking cold too. Ain't this a bitch that I have to do this video and get over a cold? But Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, it's not bad. Like, it's not bad at all. It's not even mixed. It knows what it is. It's just like Sonic the Hedgehog. It's just like Mortal Kombat. It's just like Dynasty Warriors. Okay? You give the fans what they want, you get attacked, you get trashed, and your film gets bombed. That's really how it is. That's why I don't trust nobody's opinion. And I hope that the studio, because if the studio was determined to release 6 shitty films, though they were not financially viable, I could care. If I was the studio, I'd be like, look, there are people who enjoy this remake, and we know we're being more faithful to the game with minor changes. I'll be like, look, fuck the critics, fuck the haters, continue the films. Because I want to see a live-action Code Veronica, which I hope is what they're setting up. I don't mind seeing a live-action Resident Evil 4, because in a film that would make sense. You can get away with that kind of action in a film at the end of the day. So, now, let me get into the one thing I do want to say. Is, I've noticed through this previous year and last year, video game movies and live-action adaptations have been slowly creeping up. AKA Sonic the Hedgehog, Mortal Kombat. Again, like I've said, the examples I gave you are films that are trying to bring in their audience, but also bring people new, and I feel like they've done it successfully. You know, you do got hardcore fans that are too anal about what they want. You know, let's, for example, you could sit 2 Resident Evil fans in a room of how, give them an idea, tell them, script me Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 as 2 separate scripts and see if you can pan a good script. Both people are going to have 2 separate interpretations of what the story is going to be, because A, there's a lot of background for Resident Evil 1 and there is a lot of Resident Evil 2 background, but you know where that background comes from? A lot of sidetracking and backtracking. You can't do that in the film. You need to condense it. Okay? Resident Evil is dumb. It's stupid. But it's fantastically stupid. And it's amazingly dumb. Okay? You're not going to go into this film expecting fucking Shakespeare. Okay? I've even heard people saying, why is Leon not Leon by 4? So, let me give another example then. So, wait a minute. People complain about the action from all the way from Resident Evil 4, 5, 6, Revelations and all that up, but yet they want Leon to be dodging lasers in this film. You see how stupid and easily debunkable that is. Okay? Look, I'm gonna say it proudly. fuck what most of these reviews are saying. You know, you guys are glad that you have someone like me, especially when it comes to Resident Evil, and I've been able to tell, you know, my audience has never been led astray from things out there, and I'm glad that I can help people out with that. But if I was to grade an honest grade for Welcome to Raccoon City, it would be a solid 7. It's a 7. You know, even I can admit where it falls, it falls. And yeah, I am gonna agree. It does fall with condensing the two games into one because it moves at a brisk pace and everything feels like it's basically a roller coaster. It's if you took the non-stop action of Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 and used that as like the accelerant during the actual zombie apocalypse. So these characters are fighting more than they're doing investigating, but let's be real. If you were in the Resident Evil situation, are you going to be sitting there reading files while a bunch of fucking zombies and lickers are going to be knocking outside the office door, or are you going to be trying to kill them and get the hell out the way? My point exactly. So Operation Raccoon City, again, solid 7. Solid 7. It's a good time at the theater. It's not too short, and it's not overly long. It's not perfectly paced, but it does have a good runtime. You know, you can't expect these movies to be super long, okay? Gamers, or especially video gamers and video game fans, will never be pleased. You will never please them with video game movies. And even if you say you did, the video game movies they said that pleases them doesn't please everybody else. So they can't use their own viewpoint to judge for everyone else. And that's unfortunately again the case. It's fans versus the critics, but actually in this case in Resident Evil, it's fans versus newbies versus critics. Okay, because some of the new casuals opinions I've seen of this movie, I'm sorry, the casual audience moviegoers are just dumb. They're dumb. They're stupid. They're big boo-boos. They don't know how to view something other than shiny, blow up, boom, 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 Michael Bay style. And for the fans, I hope you guys really change your minds sort of on this, because even they're being slightly unfair and sound more like a critic than an actual fan. You know, a fan would know what would be in the material. And if changes are made, acceptance has to be made. We've done it for the shitty action of all the other games, so why can't we accept it in the film? This is Emperor John Kill 3 Game. Be sure to follow, like, subscribe. Catch you next time.